backstage area, and hello, I'm live, and I'm Will. For those of you who've never joined a broadcast before, it's Wednesday, so it's Wednesday with Will. And for those of you who have followed me in the past, today is the premiere of season 2. I can't believe that I've been doing this for nearly a year. I had the idea about a year ago. Today is the beginning of my next chapter. I am, I guess, Will in Brazil for this season. So I'll be down here in Brazil for a while. But that's enough about me. Today, I'm going to bring you someone who has inspired me, someone that I have gotten to know. And right before this broadcast started, I was all about threes, 2023. And the Diane Gilman is with us today, and she's in the backstage. I'm waving at her there. I'll bring her up in a minute. And Diane, let me set this up a little bit. So Diane and I have 3 things in common. We like to talk. We do love to be on camera, and we like to inspire people. And we've had so many wonderful conversations about using our energy and our platforms and just our desire to be more. So I'm going to bring Diane up. We're going to talk about her new book. And I really want to know where you're tuning in from, or if you're on Team Live. I'm really want to see how international we are. There's the Diane Gilman. Welcome and Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year. Oh, Will in Brazil. I'm loving that. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
It's been about almost 2 months since I've done one of these lives. I love to do the audio events, but the live bit is a way to just introduce people to those who follow me and are interested in kindness and being a better leader. I love introducing them to people who have inspired me. And Diane, you know this because we've talked about it. You have inspired me. And I'm cheering you on because here you are. You'll tell your story, but here you are, someone who's inspired me. And I know you're someone that has spent a lifetime, and you've had multiple lifetimes, celebrities. So I want you to tell the folks, just about your book, and those who do not know you, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am called the Queen of Jeans because I invented for tele-retail, QVC, HSN, a jean for a middle-aged body. I am a complete Benjamin Button's anomaly in my industry, fashion, where most people in fashion peak in their 20s to late 30s. I peaked in my late 50s through my mid 70s. Absolutely unheard of. I invented a jean for myself. I was a rock and roll chick all my life. Turned around one day, looked in the mirror, saw a stranger, my middle-aged version of me, couldn't get into a jean, thought, wait a minute, this is so unfair. Light bulb moment, you're a designer, make a jean for yourself. So I customized a jean. It totally changed my perspective on aging and life, gave me my sexy back, made me feel like I was all that again. And then I thought, wouldn't millions of women love to feel this way? Well, the rest of the industry really did not get on board. But we got a new CEO at our TV network. I pitched it to her. I got 5 a.m. on a freezing cold February morning, not exactly prime time, but we sold 5,000 jeans in 3 minutes. I broke every sales record in tele-retailing. We shot to $100 million domestically, which is amazing for a company that had very little capitalization. And then I thought, so whether you're eating pasta or lo mein noodles or Wiener Schnitzel or fish and chips, all women are dealing with the same hormones. Wouldn't this work internationally? And that started my international career of flying back and forth. The upside is if you're somebody like me who loves all the girly stuff about TV, the wardrobe and the makeup and the hair, and that's great that it can only be you. But the downside is none of the international networks would agree so I could just do a grand European tour. I was commuting back and forth to Europe every other week, sometimes once a week. It really, really was demanding. However, I was the girl that never said no. And then I built that into a huge ongoing business. And everywhere we took that one fantastic seminal idea of middle-aged women want to look sexy in a jean, we came out number one instantly. Well,
Diane, what I want to ask you, right?
yeah,
I put up here on the screen to plug yourself into where the juice is, right? I talk about following that energy and doing it. I think your story, and you and I have talked about this before, your story is about empowering women and what you've done for women. And I think it's great.
totally.
But I have absolutely been inspired by you, and I'm not a woman. I love the fact that you created a whole new career in your late 50s, like I am. You're not one of these people that shy away from your age. You embrace your age.
Totally.
You embrace the moment that you're in. And so I had someone tell me when I was deciding to do this and to leave my day job and my career, that at my age, in my late 50s, I'd have a better chance of being struck by lightning than ever work again.
Yeah.
I just said no. But how do I put this? I'm a male, and men do get more of
Just
a pass
say
than
it.
women.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm in my late 70s. I'm 77, about to be 78. And like a complete maniac, well, I could have stayed in tele-retail forever, gone on being number one. But it was a little bit like that old Peggy Lee song, So That's All There Is. I thought to myself, it's not making my heart beat fast anymore. I'm not anticipating it. I don't feel like I'm a pioneer anymore. I want to do something new and exhilarating. And so I said, I would like 2022 to be my farewell year. And I wrote the book, Too Young to Be Old, as a foundation for hopefully going on social media and becoming one of the first Silverella girls, silver-haired influencers, talking about all things good about aging and how to get there. And I do call it my third act in the book, because I think I obviously, having been in a fringe form of showbiz for 30 years, my length of time on air, I see my life as entertainment to me, as well as hopefully to millions. But my third act is my most precious.
I want to ask you this, because you've inspired so many. Your audience for all those years on HSN and watching the farewell that they gave you, I was cheering you on, and I thought it was just wonderful. I myself have given the gift of your clothing to friends and family members, and you. How do I put this? I'm all about the experience, right? I dealt in my career with millions of people a year in a physical building, and I loved it. I loved the energy. You dealt with millions of people a year, but you were in front of a camera.
Exactly.
And now here I am in front of a camera with you. And who could have imagined just a few years ago that we could pivot into something new, right? I know you, and you've been having burning desire for a while to do something new.
Yeah.
And I know people, we've got lots of people from around the globe tuning in and lots of comments. And I think you have a few fans here who love you, Diane. One of the things
Thank
that I'd
you.
love to talk about is how we overcome adversity, right? We LinkedIn, this is also being broadcast on YouTube and Facebook, but on LinkedIn, I know the audience that follows is always looking for that inspiration and that hope. It's a business platform, but yet people are looking for inspiration, and everyone, or I know I do, I want to see myself in someone else's story. You're a storyteller, and you had your rock and roll career and dress some of the best out there, some of those big names, but also you've overcome adversity. I mean,
I've had a lot of ups and downs, and
talk about the downs and how you use them as fuel to go back up.
Yeah, the biggest and the recurrent down was always that I was a creative, and I was always going to suits with the money, and I was never paid what I was worth. I was a little money machine, no matter who I was partnering up with, until finally I just thought, I'm just going to do it myself. And the minute I did it myself, and I had no obstructions, and I didn't have to explain to anybody or justify my creative process, we shot to 100 million. And the other thing I would say is there are maybe some times in your life when the universe gives you a message or a sign. So I had a little kicker in my road, which was when I was just at the top of my game. Christmas Eve of 2017, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in both breasts. And I thought, no, wait a minute. Old age is supposed to be about reward and your golden years. And no. Okay, so I get sad. I say goodbye to my audience. We're very difficult. Tell them I've got to take a year off to go to a new job, which is to save my life. Right. And I'll be back. That night before chemo, I had a dream, one of those dreams that is a message to you from another dimension, I'm sure. So I'm in my little VW beige Bug, which I had when I was 18, 19, 20, and I'm going down a gravel road. And suddenly I reach a totally vertical needlepoint mountain, and there's no way around it. And I think, oh my God, I have someplace to go. I don't know where that is, but I've got to get there. So I back up, I gun the car, I go partially up the mountain and slide back down. I back up more, I gun the car, I go up a little further and slide back down. And then realize that if I even got all the way to the top of the needlepoint, I would just dive off in my car and crash. So in my dream, I got out of the car, turned into a giant. The needlepoint mountain became a sharp pebble under my feet, and I just walked over it. Wow. And that has been the theme of my life and my career, because I loved my career. I devoted my life to it. Designing for me was like breathing air. It was so necessary. But I realized that every time I hit a point of impossibility, or you just thought, oh my gosh, whatever I've done or not doing, or people are doing to me, it's irreversible. It wasn't at all. It was a matter of me growing bigger than myself and very gracefully getting through it. And even getting on television, I had gotten into a huge lawsuit with the company.
And
Not the
again,
last, not the last company I was with, but
you
one
never let it
day,
get you down. That's what I love about you. You just don't let that stuff get you down.
and then you recognize opportunities. So I couldn't use my name. I couldn't really work because I couldn't use my name. Um, and QVC called me 30 years ago out of the clear blue sky and said, we'd love to have you on air. And I said, well, I can't. I can't use my name. And I'll never forget this. They said, oh, that's okay. We'll just call you Diane. And that's a big chapter in my book. And so you also have to recognize where you're at in any moment and what those opportunities are that come to you and how appropriate they are. And now, honestly, walking away from what I've known for way over half of my career and saying, okay, I see the similarities with social media, camera, makeup, wardrobe, talking. I love it all, but I can go for broader subjects. And in my heart, aging correctly and robustly and happily is as much a need for me to get out there as design was. It's sort of like going to the top of the Empire State Building with a bungee cord you've never tested and saying, yeah, okay, I think I'll just fly off. But you know what? Go where your passion is and go where your heart is and do what truly opens up your heart. And
Energy.
I swear you can never go wrong with heart energy.
Exactly. No, it's energy. For everybody who's watching live, feel free to put questions in the comments here. I'm going to monitor it and look. And Diane, later when you watch the replay of this, you'll see there's people from Austria, Israel. You've got a global audience here, so it's so wonderful.
Fabulous.
We have my good friend Mikkel from Austria who has a question. What age is too young to feel old?
Well, I will tell you that I'm 77. And I get treated like a doddering old lady with, 10% of my brain cells left all the time. So I would say even at 77, I'm too young to be old. I want to be excited again. I want to be challenged again. I want to feel creative again. And maybe I'm just one of those brave souls, or I'm one of those excitement seekers that has to do that. But everyone once in a while, Will and I get together and question one another, like, are we nuts to do what we're doing? I mean, we were so comfortable where we were, but I don't think we're nuts at all. I think the most dangerous thing you can do if you're somebody like me or you is to stay where you are and slowly die. And so I just thought these years are too precious. I want to leave a legacy of making my generation of women happier, more fulfilled, more productive. And damn it, I'm going to take the plunge and go for it.
The thing that I
am.
I don't know if you remember this, but I can clearly remember the day I met you. You're a busy woman, so you probably don't remember. But another 3 things we share together. It's all about the 3s. We share a love of design.
Yeah.
We do share a love of food, and this is a secret for the office for the audience. We do share my husband. So he's got the day shift with you. He comes home at night. And so I got to know you through his design work, working with you, and I've watched your style and your passion for design morph and change. And I live with someone, as you well know, who enjoys it.
Loves it.
The way I see it, and correct me because I'd love your thoughts on it. What you do with design, it's a lifestyle for you. It totally isn't about a look.
I realized something about my dotage this period of my life, and it's all about from diet to exercise to general health attitude to attitude about how to stimulate your brain. It's all about customization. Something where if you have worked in a large corporation most of your life, you probably have not had that opportunity. But let me tell you what, if you can take that in your third act and and I just got a new idea that I'm gonna lay on his husband after this podcast, and he's gonna think I'm crazy, but I know we're gonna be able to execute it together. I love customizing my life now. I love customizing my diet. Everything goes into singular focus, which is all about health, which is all about energy, which is all about attitude and spirituality and soul connection and intention. I love the power of intent and bringing that forward. So, you know what? You can be in many ways if you worked with a large company, but you find you want to do something for a much more select audience going forward, and maybe you're your own boss. The power of intent and bringing intention forward into the physical world, that to me is an absolute key, but you got to believe in yourself to
Exactly. So the creativity piece, so I left an operations world, really.
Yeah.
So, you think of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it's art, it's inspiration, the galleries, everything about it is food for the soul.
Uh-huh.
But my day-to-day was keeping the trains running on time, and it's the business part, and you're collaborating with so many different people. I step out of that world to experiment on my own here and do what I want. And Diane, it was so liberating, right? I can choose the font I want and the color I want.
I feel people tell me that my facial structure and my body language is so different now that I'm so much more joyous. It's so much more relaxed. I was just in an atmosphere where everything was about money, money, money. How are you going to? Well, okay, that's all natural to me. I was always the money maker, but now it's more food for the soul than it is about actual dollar bills. And oh my God, I feel so cleansed, don't you? And I feel like I'm delivering a purer, much more honest, much more heartfelt message. And, really at 77 years old, you think, what is the footprint you leave when you're gone? Well, okay, I invented a great gene for middle-aged women, but I would also like a huge swath of that audience to think of me as helpful, kind, contributing to their everyday function and happiness. I've got some big goals ahead of me. And you want to know something? I have not been this excited in years. And I think it shows and it motivates me and it drives me. I'm in a very happy place just it's like driving my own little spiritual VW bug. Right?
Yeah, what I think that I get from you, and I've watched your metamorphosis, right? And I think we've encouraged one another, and that is the Benjamin Button thing. Maria, there's so many people, and I encourage you to read the comments later in LinkedIn. There's so many wonderful comments from around the world. You have a big fan in Dr. Nupi here.
Yes, thank you very much. I love this.
All over the place. Maria wrote some comments back. I'm going to look for it. I say this all the time. She wrote here, I felt older in my 20s. I'm 56.
Yeah.
I was an old man in my 20s and 30s. I was so old and so conservative and just wanted to please everybody and change everything. And I've been morphing out of that, and it's liberating. I knowing you, I would imagine you never I would imagine you never felt old, but did you ever have those moments? Like, do
I
you?
felt very old. When my husband in 1997 passed away, it was after 10 years of cancer. I was really the sole caregiver. I felt ancient. I felt dried out from inside out, right? There were many times, I think that when television contacted me, I felt old. I felt like I was constantly fighting with the people that backed me with money. I learned a great lesson, and the lesson is never, never judge your own self-worth by what other people offer you financially,
Mhm,
ever.
mhm.
But that took a long time to learn. So, in a way, I never want to go back to another decade like the 70s or the 80s and bemoan the fact that I'm not that.
Right,
I
right.
don't mind having one foot in the past because I had some very, very good times, but I have to have one foot in the present also, constantly forming it and treasuring it and nurturing it. And, you
There's
know,
a great question here. Sorry to cut you
yeah.
off, but Gina writes in, how did you get your confidence? I had to build mine up. I
I
imagine you just had it from the beginning.
Uh, no, I think that I came from a very unsupportive household. I came from a household that never wanted me to work, that saw college as just like a dating service, a marriage service.
Yeah, right.
I had to leave home as a teenager to pursue my dreams because I realized if I stayed home and did what they wanted, I was going to wind up a 700-pound drug addict, right? Living in a basement somewhere or on the streets. So, from the very beginning, maybe for me, the confidence was I was one of those lucky people who was born with a purpose. And from the time I was a toddler, I knew pretty much what I wanted to do. I was obsessed with fashion, even as a little thing. And just maybe as a 3-year-old, it started 2.5 as soon as I could pick up a crayon and start drawing dresses. And then I constantly had that brick wall of my family, unfortunately. So you need, I guess, for me, all my life, I needed to keep asking myself, do I really want to do this? Am I really good enough to do this? Is this going to work? And there were some times where it didn't feel like it was. And there were a lot of times where I had, especially a little bit later in my career, huge highs. Um, but I also really learned to never look to my business partners or whoever I was dealing with in terms of the networks for their approval. It was always, I just went to an inner
Right.
compass. And guess what? We all have
Correct.
that.
We
You
all
know
have that.
when you're doing something
You
spot
can
on,
you
even
can
if you don't get the effect immediately.
now, Constance writes here, and if I'm understanding this, I'll do it concisely. My problem is my face looks younger than my age, and teaching can sometimes be a challenge as students expect someone more mature. I feel old, just may not reflect it. How do you make sure one establishes credibility? People still judge you by the way you look.
Yeah, it is such a totally visual world, and I can only tell you that, Constance, along with, and I seem to shock people a lot when I do podcasts. They're like, "Oh, you're so glamorous." Well, I'm thinking to myself, what should I look like? What is your vision of what I should look like at
Yeah,
77?
right.
Old and haggard and tired and don't take care of myself. I was in a visual industry all my life that expected me to look younger, but your credibility comes from your inner vibe. Your credibility comes from your um, almost spiritual gravitas. That's the advice that I would give you. I've never truly been treated for the age I was. If people don't know me, if I was going out there to try and get a job at 77 years old, good luck. I would starve to death. But luckily, I do have, and someone is saying, bravo for following your passion and your purpose. I am a very passionate person, and all my life I've had a purpose. And I always called it purpose-driven fashion, solution-driven fashion, how to make a middle-aged and older woman look younger and feel better about herself. And now I'm just broadening that up beyond fashion and saying to myself, it may work, it may not work, but I'm gonna give it my best.
So Diane, I want to ask you something, right?
Yeah.
We talk about we talk about giving it our all and giving it our best and the way the world judges us. This community that I've been able to build here organically,
Bravo.
there's been so many people that have become real friends, and there are many that are on this broadcast watching. I will think I've never met them in person, but I have a connection with them, and I'm thinking, what would David say? What would Michelle say? You had a relationship with an audience, and people were supporting your brand and your business. Look, in many ways, the virtual, you were ahead of your time in the virtual world. I mean, it was television, but you built relationships in front of the camera in a time where that wasn't a thing people did. How do you see doing more? I personally think you should do more of your own shows because people would tune in, but how do you see continuing to grow the audience, because you have so much to say and so much to inspire people?
Well, it's a whole new territory for me. So the first thing is knowing that how much I enjoy this form of communication, question and answers in front of a camera. I I think I want to do more podcasts, and then possibly more once I understand the medium better into my own podcast.
Yeah.
I want to represent products that I believe in, because I will tell you what, customization of your life past a certain age. You can't go to a gym at my age. There are no classes that are going to work for that. I had to customize my own exercise, diet, depending on what your parameters are after a certain age, whether it's diabetes or whatever it is. There, you can't go out there to Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers. You have to do so much of this. You have to do yourself. It's almost like past a certain age, you have to rediscover yourself. And honestly, breast cancer helped me do that. I had worked my entire adult life. So when I got breast cancer in 2018 and went into treatment, I think I was at one of those periods of my life where I was feeling pretty old. Everything was by rote. I'd done it all a million times before, blah, blah, blah. Well, now when you're at a point with stage 3 cancer, where you're talking losing your life, you understand how much you value your life.
Right.
And I made
And time is a different thing.
Oh, totally. And also, I go back to intent again. So the first time I went for chemo, and I had the great privilege of being in Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, the Dubin Center, which is extraordinary for breast cancer. I'm sitting in the waiting room for my first chemo treatment, and there are women there. Nobody's talking. First thing I thought was, well, this is terrible. Why aren't we all, we're all in this together. Why aren't we all sharing? And then no one was smiling. A lot of women were sitting there just weeping. And the next thing I saw was how tense all the chemo nurses were, just like wired. Then I heard all the complaining from other patients, and I thought, damn it, I'm going to be an anomaly. I'm going to be cheerful. I'm going to greet them in a way like, oh, I can't wait to be back here again next week. I'm going to be helpful. I'm going to be cooperative. I am going to be the exact opposite of what they expect me to be. And that's kind of how I came out of breast cancer, thinking, damn it, I am going to blow everybody's expectations away about old age. You know, the one great thing about being old is no one expects much from you. So you like go over the top with over expectation constantly because nobody is even aware that you could do it. So I have to say that there's a lot of parallels between having a mortality disease and facing mortality. And I learned a lot about myself. So I guess the bottom line message is it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Yeah.
It's never
look,
just one thing.
Used it. You've used it.
Uh-huh.
And look, this is the first, Diane. You know that I'm very involved and I love being on social media. But this guy, Manuel, is usually not, and he has a question for you.
So what should we expect from the new book? Well, the thing I like the most about the new book, two things. I'm just going to put me beside me. The first thing is it's a biography of honestly just climbing Mount Everest 5,000 times during my life. So in the end, people all think, oh my God, she's on top of the world and she's so spoiled. And look at that New York penthouse and the life she lived. Trust me, I worked for every nail, every bit of wood and paint, and Manuel knows it, that was in that house and able to customize my life. But the other thing I love about Too Young to Be Old is 25 rules for growing old more joyously, more gracefully, more productively. 25 rules for girls who don't like rules, like me. Some of those rules I learned from breast cancer. Some of those rules I learned from failure. Some I learned from success. But you are in charge. You are behind the wheel, and this is your time of life, no matter at what level and with what kind of performance, to truly succeed in being happy. That is, and making people happy around you. That is now my number one goal. Not selling. We've sold already, what, 23 million jeans in 14 years on air. That was one goal to conquer. But the next goal is I have a gift of communication. I have learned through breast cancer how to open up my heart, and I want to use that to make as many women happy as I can. That is the point of this book.
That's great. That's really great. It gets me thinking about going back to the threes. I made a list in my head. I don't do New Year's resolutions necessarily. The list of the threes that I will want to do, I'm going to do less because I want to be more. So I'm going to try to be in the moment.
Yeah.
I am going to follow energy. And yes, it is very, going back to that first one, it is very, very tough when, like you've had an active career, you're used to being busy. We live in a city like New York. It's go, go, go. I'm going to try to be present because I know I need to go inward. You were talking
I like to be more silent within myself.
Exactly.
Look for the universal signs that tell me which direction I should be going in. For me, that's very important right now.
The other thing, you talked about it earlier, we say it in different ways, energy. I'm drawn to energy. I'm aware of energy. If I'm around people or in places that it just doesn't jive, it doesn't mean that it's bad necessarily, but it's not for me.
It's just not for you. That's all. Yeah.
And so I maybe you will agree with me. And the third thing I'm doing for 2023 is I've learned the word no. And it was something I never said no growing up. I never said no in my former career.
Interesting.
Out of a place of,
Me either.
you are the person. Oh, Diane, you could do it. Will, you could do it. You're going to make this right. You're going to sell this jean. You're
Could
going to.
you, could you do a 4 a.m. show? Oh yeah. I was the girl that I was the cheapest
Sure.
date in town. I never said no. But now I think for me at my age, 77, yes, energy very important. Cultivating my own energy so I can get my message across is super important. Saying no to frivolous desires from other people, and also I have no time left to take inappropriate people into my life who are not going to augment my message, which I think is so important. And that doesn't make them bad people. That just means they're not in the right place. So I really feel like you. I just think I have a little stricter time frame on it. But yes, it's really about purifying your life, truly.
We have here Helen, my dear friend Helen from Israel. She too intensely dislikes rules.
Oh yeah,
She won't be put in any box.
I hate rules, but I learned a lot of lessons from breast cancer, and it, you know, one of them, I think one of the chapters is called "Don't go near a barbed wire fence if you're wearing a mohair sweater," and
I like that. Yeah.
That literally means that if somebody is trying to get you into an argument or a fight, or you don't have the time for that anymore. Old age should really, and I say old age with no negative connotation, but the age I'm at, the age any of us are at really, who are probably tuning into this, you don't have time for unnecessary fights. You don't have time for all these battles. Most of these battles are you with excess energy, not knowing how to funnel it correctly.
Something that blew my mind, and it's been said before, and I forget who said it, but I was asked to join a panel, and we were speaking, and one of the women who was moderating the panel, she spoke about the importance of respecting time and respecting other people's time, because you can make more money, you can have a new home, you can get new clothes, but you can't get back time.
That was made very clear to me again through breast cancer, that you can, you know, I was watching a great biopic of George Jones and Tammy Wynette, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Country Music. And he gives up everything, his publishing rights, his songs, everything, just to get to be able to sing with her. And she says, "Oh my God, we're broke," Tammy. And George says, "The only thing easier than losing money is making money." Right?
Right.
So there are so many life lessons that if you just listen and incorporate what's right for you into your being, by the time you get to be the age I am, you can so navigate so much more simply. And yeah, the terrain is different. I'm not running a 3K race anymore. I've definitely got some physical issues that came with me from breast cancer that I've had to adapt to again use the word customize my life to. But that is minor compared to the joy I feel being the age I'm at, and still able to ferret out something I really, really want to do with my life.
So those that are watching here or watching the replay, what advice would you give to any person of any age? Like, what's the one? You've worked with so many people in your career. You must have been the mentor to others, and you must have been the person that someone who was able to learn from you, what would someone who hasn't met you, or maybe someone who has, what would you want them to know? Where do they start? They may have that idea. They may feel,
Be true to yourself. One thing I did and had to do was tune out everybody else. Everyone had an idea about what I should do with my life. And as a matter of fact, and this is kind of hilarious in a distorted sort of way, my mother just had one goal for me: marry a Jewish doctor. If you had to take a step down, okay, marry a lawyer, but it wasn't as good. But and have children. That was not what I wanted to do, and it was not what I ever did or even aspired to. Years later, my cousin was at some kind of family do with my mother and said, "Oh, you must be so proud of Diane. She's not only in every department store in America with her name up there and banner, but she's on television now." My mother looked at her and said, "She should have married a doctor."
yeah,
So I learned at a very young age to tune out all the static, all the noise of no, you can't do that, and no, you're not talented, and no, you're not pretty enough, and no, you're too chubby, and no, you're too this, and no, you're too that. And it was painful at times. So I would honestly say you got to go with your heart. You've
yeah,
got to go with what you know
that
inside.
instinct.
And
That
guess what? You
instinct.
may go for a period of your life where you've got to do what other people tell you to do because you've got to raise a family, you need to provide. But there will come a time in your life where, look, I say it could be as simple as you live in a small town, you're in church, you go to the church bazaar always with your famous chocolate chip cookies, and maybe that is your goal, is to start taking those cookies to children's hospitals and brightening up their day. But whatever it is, there is no ambition too big or too small,
Right.
if it truly comes from your soul, that you should not follow.
Yeah, no,
That's like a double alliterative negative, but go with
yeah.
your gut. That's what I say.
David, that's great advice. And David is a big fan. You've got many fans. I really, really want you to read the comments later. How did you handle the people who gave you unsolicited advice? Nowadays, that's a pet peeve for me. If I didn't ask you for your opinion, you don't need to give it to me, right? That sort of thing. How do you handle the people? Oh, Diane, you should do this, or Diane, wear your hair that way. How do you deal with that?
I don't fight them anymore. I just don't go their way, right? I just don't. They can give me any advice they want to, and oh, by the way, people have loads of advice for you as you get older of what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and
Right.
what you and I don't know any. I follow almost very little of it, but instead of getting into a deep discussion about, oh, well, no, and here's why I don't want to do what you're saying I should do, I just say, yeah, I'll think about that and let it go. Don't wear a mohair sweater when you are, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I'm being mindful of time. We're coming
Okay,
towards the end, and I want to make sure that I'm able to have you say a few of the last words, but I want people to be able to follow you, right? So I'm going to bring up here on the
great.
screen today's topic is I really wanted to talk about your book, Too Young to Be Old with the Diane Gilman. Get your copy. I've seen people making comments already that they're ordering as they're watching you. So
It is actually a pretty entertaining book. I've had a really crazy life. I'm not saying
crazy's
anybody
good.
else would want to live it, but I lived it. And I would say that from the time I was a really little girl, my mother was 45 years old when she had me in 1945, unheard of. She got very sick, had to have a full hysterectomy along with my birth. And I watched somebody plummet into old age because, of course, there was no hormone replacement. So
Right.
really, from the time I was a little girl, I was always thinking, I'm always going to be too young to be old. And this book has a lot of wisdom for putting your head and your heart in the right place to go on being you, the best you can be in the moment, and live out that third act in a very satisfying, and whether you love drama, I seem to just crave a magnet for drama, or peace, or whatever. But nobody in this society gives us guidelines for growing older better. You know, I always say the same thing, Will, and then if I was a child today, let's say I was a 5-year-old and my parents still had cable TV, what would I think old age was? I would think it was disease, total disadvantage, pain, because
Yes.
all those, it's only the only time you ever see anybody old is a drug commercial where it says you could die from this, you could lose your hearing from this, your heart could stop from this. I would think old age was, oh my God, that is the one thing I don't want to happen. So I leave you with this. My favorite saying from one of my favorite people, Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, who, by the way, what a miracle he's alive today. Talk about karma. And he said, you know, old age is life is a funny thing. Nobody wants to grow old, but nobody wants to die young. So here we are. People were all in the same bucket together.
It's really been such a journey, and I'm so excited that I get to watch this book come alive, because this book didn't happen overnight.
No, I started it Christmas Eve of 2017 when I got the diagnosis. I called a friend of mine, Jan Tuckwood, who at the time was a senior editor of the Palm Beach Post, had written some beautiful articles about me. And I said, Jan, whether I survive or not, I'm probably going to do it differently from other people. You want to take this journey with me? She said, yes. And 4 years later, took a while, we brought the book to life. And truthfully, it is a very good read. It's kind of like a weekend binge read. It's good whether you're 20 and you're terrified of aging or you're 75. It's got a lot of truth in it and a lot of just joyous remarks and visions, because I'm a girl that likes to make people laugh and have fun. You know that, Will.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. If we're at a dinner table with me.
Yes, in a restaurant, people are going to hear laughter. And yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of toasts and
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's think of your favorite glass of champagne. That is what Too Young to Be Old is as a book.
That's wonderful. And I really hope everybody who's watching this or the replay picks up their copy, follows you, looks at your website, thedianegilman.com. And I know you've been, I've been watching you and following you. You've been doing such fun things on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I try to go beyond fashion, but you know, the truth is I'm just a fashion hound, and you can tell your husband that the one remark I get the most is, I want to see every square inch of your house, Diane, and know how you did it and what materials you used. So a whole segment of our social media next will be all about how we built the penthouse, the beautiful duplex penthouse that Diane lives in. And boy, this is such a comfort to me. And I would love to share that form of design with everybody.
It's truly spectacular. I'm a little bit biased, but the energy there and what you've built is just beautiful.
Oh, wait till you hear my next idea. It's like off the rails.
That'll be post show with the designer, right?
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you, Diane, for
I want to
joining
say
us.
thank you, Will.
And I'm looking forward. I hope that there have been people who've been watching this today. I know people have reached out who want to be in contact with you. So I
We
really
answer. We respond.
Yeah,
So
no, and I
if
do
you've got
think that's why I
questions,
do this. I love the networking, and we
yeah,
build and support one another,
me
and I think
too.
it's wonderful.
Me too.
So thank you, Diane. You are way too young to be old, and it's a privilege to be friends with you. And thank you so
Yay.
much for joining me today.
Yay.
And thank you
Thank
for
you, everybody.
season 2 premiere. You are wonderful. Thanks. Bye, everyone. We'll see each other soon.
Bye.
Bye.